Hello, I'm Senator Dick Durbin. Welcome to my Capitol Report, A Different View. 2 years ago, the voters of New Hampshire elected a new United States Senator, Kelly Ayotte. It was her first bid for public office. She had an impressive 60% of the vote. When you take a look at her background, though, she has really been a first in so many different areas. The first woman to serve as Attorney General of her state of New Hampshire. She now joins the Senate, where more women are being elected. In 2010, the year of her election, she was the only woman elected, but there are others to follow for sure. When you take a look at her background, you can understand why she was chosen for this job. She's a graduate of Penn State University, Villanova Law School. She worked as a clerk for a court justice in New Hampshire, then in private practice, then off to the Attorney General's office, eventually being appointed by a Republican governor to be the first woman Attorney General of New Hampshire, and then reappointed by a Democratic governor. She chose to run to succeed Judd Gregg, whom I served with here in the United States Senate, and now she is one of my colleagues. I'm trying to get the committees right: Budget,
yes,
and Commerce, and Small Business,
and Armed Services.
Armed
Yes.
Services, which is quite an array of responsibility. It's great to be here in your office.
It is wonderful to be with you, Dick.
Thanks.
This is great. Thanks for
First things
doing
first,
this.
tell me about your family.
Well, I'm very fortunate. I grew up in New Hampshire, was born there. I live in Nashua, New Hampshire, and married to my husband, Joe Daly.
That's a good name in Chicago.
Daly, I
Yes.
know. Well, you'll appreciate this. So my husband served 20 years in the military, so 10 years active duty. He was an A-10 pilot, 10 years in the Guard. And do you know what his call sign was?
No.
Mayor.
It should have been.
After Daly.
Perfect.
And so my husband and I live in Nashua, New Hampshire. We have 2 children, Kate, who is 7 years old, and Jacob, who's 4 years old. So we're very fortunate, and a lot of our family lives around us and near us. My parents are 5 miles away. Joe's parents live about 10 miles away, and aunts and uncles, so a lot of support to help us, particularly with me coming to Washington, and so we're very fortunate.
Now, your husband's in the landscaping and snow
Yes.
removal business?
He is. He's a small business owner. He has a landscaping and snow plowing business with his brother. And one of the things that I used to like to talk about a lot on the campaign trail is knowing what it's like to start a small business, because I did a lot of shoveling, and I can drive a truck with a snowplow on it, so that's pretty helpful skills in New Hampshire.
That's great. I bet it is. And now let me tell you, one thing you and I talked about one day was when you went to work in the Attorney General's office.
Yes.
And you talked about a couple of the cases that you handled that had an impact on your life and view of public service.
Yes. I was really a murder prosecutor at the AG's office, so those are the type of cases that I handled. And the worst case that I've ever handled, and I've handled some very bad cases. One, I was relatively new to the office, but I had an understanding about DNA evidence, and I prosecuted a case where a 6-year-old was raped and murdered. And at the time, I didn't have any children myself. My co-counsel had 2 daughters actually. And I just, that case to this day, I think was the case that had the most impact on me. We did convict the individual who committed the murder. It was horrible. And I just think, boy, could I do that now as the mother of 2 children? You know, I'm not sure. I think that would be very difficult to go and try that case right now.
I can imagine it would be. You told me as well that you were, I don't want to say apolitical, but kind of independent.
Right, very
when
much.
you came to the Attorney General's office, appointed by a Republican governor to serve as Attorney General,
Yes.
then reappointed by a Democratic
Yes.
governor. That's quite a tribute in this
Well,
partisan era that we live in.
Yes, well, thank you. And really, because I think particularly the Attorney General in New Hampshire serves as the chief law enforcement officer and the chief legal officer. And when you're enforcing our criminal laws, and when you're also I enforce the election laws of our state, I thought it was very, very important, and there's a tradition of the office that the Attorney General be independent of partisan politics, because you want people to know that when you're enforcing the law, it's not about a particular political viewpoint. It's about the facts in the case and applying the law fairly and uniformly. So before I ran for political office, I did my level best to stay out of politics altogether.
So you've been in the Senate almost 2 years now, and you're an expert.
Oh, you're right.
So tell me, what issues have you found yourself moving toward, really thinking this is something
Yes.
I want to focus my energy?
Well, I have a real interest in national security, particularly serving on the Armed Services Committee and being married to a veteran, and then understanding, I think my background as Attorney General of our state and keeping our state safe, want to make sure that our country's protected, and then our men and women that serve in the military have the support that they need for what they've done and sacrificed for us and their families. So that's been a real interest of mine. The other area that I think, overrides everything that we do down here is just the fiscal state of the country. And that's what prompted me to run for the U.S. Senate. Thinking about those two children, what will be their quality of life as we go forward with the $15 trillion in debt, and what type of country are we passing on to the next generation. And that was the big driver of why I decided to do this.
Any surprises when you came to the Senate, actually took the oath, went to the desk,
Yes.
started working as a senator?
I think the surprises, the one thing I can say has been a positive surprise is there's an impression outside of Washington that people don't always, you see it on the cable news, it's sort of us versus them. And it's not always like that on a day-to-day basis. And there are good people here who want to do the right thing. And we just have to find a way so that we can go forward and solve our problems.
Now, who would you identify as a role model in public life? Somebody that you think did a great job and really set a standard that you try to achieve in your own public service?
I think about people like Margaret Thatcher, who under circumstances that were very difficult, showed the strength and character of will, even when people disagreed with her, to stick to her principles. And, that's someone certainly I respect just for her strength and courage.
Did you see the movie?
I did see
Meryl
the movie.
Streep was amazing.
Oh yeah, well, Meryl Streep is a tremendous actress. And
Do you have her picture on your
I
wall?
do. I have a picture of
What a
her
fan.
on the wall. Exactly. No, she's a great actress. And, I think about, historical figures, obviously, that I think inspire all of us. Certainly Abraham Lincoln.
We like that in Illinois. That's
We
good.
do. See, there you go. From Illinois, it's perfect. But also, as I look around, other figures that have been inspirational to me really come down this, not so much at the presidential level, not so much at the figures like Margaret Thatcher or Ronald Reagan or inspirational figures that certainly were great leaders of our country. But I also think of my mother, really people who have taught me values that I take with me and who have been there for me and have been real role models about how you should conduct yourself as a person. I think those types of influences have meant much more to me. And before we met today, I had breakfast with the family of someone who's a role model of mine in our own state. Her name is Ruth Griffin, and she has served in every position in our state. And when I started out in public life in our state, she's someone that I looked up to and admired. And she's a real New Hampshire icon. So you take your role models from different places.
So when you're not in your role as mother and wife and senator, I understand you like the outdoors, and tell me a little bit about that experience.
Love the outdoors. Well, our state is just a beautiful state. So we have mountains, lakes, seacoast, and I love to hike. I also love to ride my bicycle, and I like to do some running. In fact, that's a great stress relief for me here, is to run to the Washington Monument or the Lincoln Memorial. And there's actually nothing more inspiring than running up the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and then running into the memorial and seeing his second inaugural address. And
Yes.
it really puts things in perspective when you're down here in Washington. So those are the types of things I like to do. But most of all, in my free time, I like to spend it with my children. And that's where I spend every free moment that I have. And in fact, over the last weekend, on Sunday, I did a 5K running race, and my kids did part of the race, the kids race. So we look for things like that to do together.
Can that be nearly as exciting as the penguin plunge? Tell us what that's
The
about.
penguin plunge, yes. The penguin plunge would be about running into the Atlantic Ocean where it is incredibly cold in the middle of winter.
For a good cause, I hope.
For Special Olympics. And I think Special Olympics are terrific. And when I was Attorney General, I was very involved with the Special Olympics. So I also took the penguin plunge as a U.S. Senator as well because I'm a great supporter of the Special Olympics. And
I would think cardiac arrest would be the first
yes,
concern.
well, let me tell you, nothing will make you run faster than running into the Atlantic Ocean in February and then right back again.
And then the stair climb, the 9/11 stair climb?
Yeah, stair climb. On September 11th of this year, our firefighters in New Hampshire decided that they would remember those who sacrificed so much on that horrific day in our country's history by having a stair climb at a local tall office building and to replicate what the firefighters did that day in going in those burning buildings and putting their lives on the line and sacrificing their lives to save other people. And so I did the stair climb with them. The thing about me doing it, though, is that the firefighters that I did it with, they had the equipment on. And if you put even one of those firefighters' boots on, you appreciate how difficult it is what they do every day and also what they did on that day climbing in those burning towers.
That's an image that I'll never forget about 9/11, the firefighters going into the building
Horrible.
and up the stairs as people were racing to get out.
Coming down.
Incredible
It's
bravery.
an image that I don't think any of us will ever forget.
Now, you didn't come to Washington alone. You
No.
brought with you an inspiration.
I did.
Oscar the moose.
Yes.
Tell us about Oscar.
So I have a very large moose head.
I'll say.
Yes.
1,250-pound
yes,
moose?
A 1,250-pound moose, Oscar. And Oscar is from New Hampshire. He, first of all, he's a bipartisan moose. He spent time in our governor's house called the Bridges House in New Hampshire, and he was there for years. In fact, he served Republican governors and he served Democrat governors. But when I got elected to the U.S. Senate, Oscar's owner said, it's time for Oscar to come to Washington and bring some New Hampshire common sense to Washington. So now he's in my office, and it's a great reminder of New Hampshire. And my constituents really enjoy seeing Oscar because we have some great forests and natural beauty in New Hampshire, and we have moose, a lot of moose. So.
A lot of us have visited your state in the midst of presidential primaries.
Yeah, so did you see any moose? Have you seen any
Missed
moose?
the moose.
Exactly.
But had a great time.
No, I'm sure you did. And we love New Hampshire's tradition of the first in the nation primary. It's very important to us. And we, politics is it's a sport in New Hampshire. It's part of our DNA. We wake up and we love political campaigns. So it's really neat to be a part of that.
My memory of sitting in Nashua at a phone bank.
Yes.
For Barack Obama, seated next to Larry David, who was volunteering to make calls. He made one call in 30 minutes. He just wouldn't stop talking.
Oh, that's funny.
And I stopped him and said, let me explain the theory here. We need more than one vote.
We need more than one vote to get, exactly.
But I have great memories of New Hampshire and Nashua. And Kelly, I thank you much.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and I appreciate your doing this show. And, I know you work hard for your constituents, and it's just great to be in the Senate.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for joining us, whether I see you in Nashua, New Hampshire, or Nashville, Illinois. I hope you'll join us the next time we have a Capitol Report, A Different View.